Figure we will start with the biggest thing this week. Stan Lee passed away on Monday, November 12th. That was just a little bit ago for us.
I think we were here.
Yeah, we were in the middle of watching Hitchhiker's Guide when we found out, and then my sister decided to continuously throw salt on the wounds by sending me Facebook messages about the whole thing, and we were like, no, which made it really hard. It would be like if in the middle of the podcast if we did it in the middle of the podcast, it would be far more interesting, I think. But yeah, so Stan Lee passed away. So supposing you've been living under a rock, is that Chris there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris. Supposing you've been living under a rock and you just don't know who Stan Lee is. First of all, it is Stan Space Lee, not Stanley. He is the creator of basically all the best Marvel stuff.
That's how Kirby says it. Jack Kirby. Always call him Stanley.
Stanley. Yeah, Stanley. Yeah, he worked with Jack Kirby too on all these characters. But Stanley, SpiderMan, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, Fantastic Four, basically the Avengers, X-Men, you name it on the Marvel side, Stan Lee's at least had his hands in it. He's also that random guy that keeps showing up in every single Marvel movie you've ever seen. That's Stan Lee. My wife, if you're like my wife, because she basically said, like, hey, did you hear about that guy that died? It was like Stan Lee, and she's like, yeah, who is he? And I'm like, he's that guy in every single movie.
She's like, who he was.
Oh, yeah, no, she doesn't know. That's not in her interest, her realm of interest. So yeah, Stan Lee passed away. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad. Our hearts are broken. Stan Lee. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit about, though, my favorite Stan Lee cameos, because he shows up a lot in random stuff. And I actually looked through. There's an entire list of cameos, and he's been in a lot of shit I didn't even know.
Right.
I am slightly annoyed. One downside is like the Marvel Netflix series couldn't bother to just pay to have Stan Lee show up, so they just have a photo of him that just pops up everywhere in the background. He's like a police officer, and like I think there's like they have a poster of him that says "Crime Doesn't Pay" and shit.
But that's so him too, though.
Yeah.
Like if he can't show up physically, he would show up for sure in a picture.
Yeah. They've got a photo of him everywhere, but that's the one, like, I'm going to give that a, because they couldn't actually get him in there. But my favorite cameos, just for hilarity, Deadpool 1, where he shows up in the strip club.
Yep.
That was amazing.
That was good.
But if you were to ask Stan Lee at that point, like, hey, what'd you think of that cameo? He was actually really, really upset because they didn't actually put him in a strip club. They like CG'd him in, and he was like, "I wanted to be there."
Yeah, he would want to be
there. Yeah, so, and that like reminds you that Stan Lee's an adult. Like, there was another one.
There was one his stripperella. He wanted to have like, stripperella.
Yeah, yeah.
He wanted to have like full on nudity in that.
Really?
Yeah, and he's kind of disappointed that they had to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah. It reminds you that like Stan Lee is a man. Like he has human tendencies. So that was really, really interesting. I also really liked the Spider-Man the animated series when he showed up at the very end.
That's my favorite. Yeah,
he swings in, or like he's in there with Spider-Man. It's a really cool talk between the two. And because Spider-Man's his flagship character, it means a whole lot.
I didn't know that he showed up in the animated.
Yeah, so they have a whole Spider-Verse thing that happens with Madam Web.
Yeah.
Who does the voice of Madam Web, right?
Is that his wife?
That's his wife.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, when she pops up and he's like, "Who is that exotic woman?" And after that, they're talking about Stan Lee, Spider-Man, and Madam Web, and she's like, "I think he's truly special."
I consider him everybody's favorite Grunkle Stan.
Like, he kind of is.
Yeah, like, he's your grandpa uncle. That's awesome, and he would look good in a fez.
I'm looking at that picture of him right now. My goodness, that mustache would look good.
One of the things that makes me happy, like that's like helped cheer me up in these past couple of days, is I'll think of him saying like the names of all of his superheroes, and it's just delightful every time just hearing him like Hulk or Spider-Man, like because he gets so exciting about everything. And then
Oh yeah, another part of that is that it was like a whole concentration of Stan Lee for that cameo. Because right after that, she says, "Face front, true believer. We're gonna find Mary Jane." And like face front, true believer is his like what he says to the comic book readers in his comic books that he wrote that's one of his catchphrases.
I always knew about True Believers. I didn't know about the face front part. That is so cool.
Yeah.
And then I also really like him as Larry King or Hugh Hefner when he pops up in the Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
I thought those were the best, like, because he just makes those characters even better. Like, Hugh Hefner is kind of a creep, but, like, when he pops up as Stan Lee, you're like, yeah.
If that had been actually Hugh Hefner, it would be less interesting than if
Yeah,
it was
Stan Lee as
yeah.
Hugh Hefner.
Yeah.
Stan Lee's just, I don't know, he's just one of my favorite people ever. He's always delightful. Those are my favorite cameos. Do you guys have favorite?
For well, my very favorite was the Spider-Man one, the Spider-Man animated series one. For the Marvel movies, I would say I think it's Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Oh yeah, that was supposed to be on my list.
When he's talking to the Watchers, I think it is.
Yeah, because it confirms that theory.
And he's like, "Oh, this time I was a mailman. They had me or something like that."
Yeah, that was the Tony Stank one. Oh, the other one that I forgot about was in I want to say it's Age of Ultron, where when they're at the party and he gets fucking hammered. That is
was a
That's a good one.
so that one couples with the Deadpool cameo with me because it's like the idea that Stan Lee's an adult. Like you forget that he's a man, he's an adult, he has needs, he drinks. You know, it's because the first time I saw those, I was like, oh no, and then I was like, you know what? Stan Lee's a human being just like the rest of us. Like, I'm sure he's been to a strip club.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure he's gotten hammered. You know,
it's good to see him be a person. So he's more of like your Uncle Stan.
Yeah, he's like your Uncle Stan, like your lovely uncle. Like I like to say Grunkle because he could be either your grandpa or uncle, and both are delightful thoughts. Like just being related to Uncle Stan.
Very, very old uncle.
Yeah, very, very old uncle. I feel like a great uncle for us, unfortunately.
I think his funniest cameo was Mallrats. The Mallrats cameo.
Oh yeah.
He tried to give Brody relationship advice, and then he started making shit up about how he placed himself into like, oh, Dr. Doom, that was me because I was all broken up inside and had to have a mask to hide myself. The Hulk, that was me because I was full of emotions because of this woman that I lost. It was all bullshit. He's just Brody's friend just tried to get him to say a bunch of stuff so he would pursue Brody's girlfriend again, pretty much.
Nice.
That's awesome.
What are some of your
favorites?
favorites?
I like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man series. You can say I know they're terrible. I know they're bad.
Okay.
I really like the first two.
Yeah, I was gonna say the first two are pretty good.
I love them, and he obviously appears in those, and he says into Spider-Man, and I think the first one, but it might be the second one, something like I guess one person really can make a difference, which is like less funny and more of like a
It's
like I'm gonna carry that one with me, Stan. Thank you. One person, because he definitely did. Like he definitely left an impact.
Oh yeah. Well, so this kind of brings on to another thing that I wanted to talk about with all of Stan Lee's works. I would say that every character has a lesson. I can't say specifically what each one that he was intending on impacting.
Mm-hmm.
I can say for sure Spider-Man was great. With great power comes great responsibility. This idea of a kid who is an everyman has greatness thrusted upon him. But there's a lot of responsibility behind that, and putting that with a kid, that was such an incredible story. The other thing was the X-Men, how he tackled the civil rights movement, essentially. Okay. And that was, it was brilliant writing, and it just shows like Stan Lee falls on the side of like good and consideration, and he wanted to inspire everyone with his writing, which was, I don't know, it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to say the Hulk was about anger management issues. But when he talked, I loved when he talked about how he created the Hulk, because I think if you watch the Ang Lee Hulk, there's a commentary about him talking about if you watch the DVD commentary,
Oh.
there's a clip of him talking about like he wanted Frankenstein, something between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Frankenstein. And that's what created the Hulk, and that's incredible. Like everything he puts effort into is really cool. And like one thing that I really appreciated, I was watching another clip of him last night where he was talking about writing and stuff, and he says, when I see these characters up on the big screen, he goes, I don't see them as my characters. He goes, because there are so many directors and writers and actors who have put themselves into these parts as well, that I just see them as these living characters now. And he goes, and that's so cool. And it just shows him as a writer, he's very considerate of the process and how much other people have put into it. And how incredible of a person he is. Like, he's the most delightful uncle, I think.
There's speaking of, there are two thoughts. Speaking of cameos, I was watching some of, I can't remember what it was, but a lot of those 90s cartoons, the Spider-Man collections, even though I can't get them all, especially the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four 90s cartoon is very underrated.
Oh, yeah.
But he, like on the DVDs, he does intros for each episode. Talks about each episode. And one of them, he was talking about how, speaking of cameos, he recalls, like one of the first things he wanted to do was be an actor. So...
So a lot of people were like, someone who'd be incredible to play young Stan Lee is it Tom Holland who plays Spider-Man right now? Yeah, he looks like Stan Lee when he was young.
I thought you were going to say Tom was
but what I was thinking would be really really funny is Mark Maron. If that guy could be happy. Like, I'd like to see him put some effort into it, because every time I see him, I'm like, he looks like 90s Stan Lee. I think it's Mark Maron, right? He's in Glow.
Mustache gentleman.
Yeah. He looks like Stan Lee, except for he's a grumpy Stan Lee.
He's kind of more a miserable.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd like to see him as a happy Stan Lee, because this movie is like there's going to be a biopic for Stan Lee.
There has to be
any year now, like the next couple years. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. Mr. Rogers has been like the trend lately, but
Stanley beat one.
He's just fantastic.
It's good to let them to like. Usually they let them pass before they like.
Yeah, they give them some time.
Yeah, like when did Rogers die? Like 14, I think.
Yeah, it was a little while ago. And then I almost lost it this morning, and it was like the shittiest Photoshop job, but it just did it where they did the Andy scene. The last Andy scene in Toy Story 3 where he gives all his toys away, but it's Stan Lee giving all of his characters to what's his name? He's in charge of Marvel right now. Kevin Feige. He's like giving all of his characters. He goes, Kevin, will you take care of them for me? Mm-hmm. And then he pulls out Woody, but it's Spider-Man, and he's like, this is my favorite. And he's like, how'd you get in here, Spider-Man? And he goes, take care of him. He wants so bad to be
chat.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Who is that?
Stan the Man. Kim Pop.
Kim Pop. Welcome. Sorry. We got some we're getting really into our tribute to Stan here. We're getting into our tribute to Stan. My heart.
Hey guys.
Hey, who's that?
Same person.
Oh, hey! I'm sorry. I can't read where the shit. I'm gonna let you guys.
I can.
Drake, you're in charge of chat.
Oh my god, put me in charge of chat.
I can't see with the shit right now. The window's like right in my eyes. This is making me reconsider not having a curtain up there, because my wife is like.
The curtain, I think you're probably gonna want that. I mean,
well, so I love that window because there's birds and shit flying there.
It's definitely pretty out there.
So I would say, is there a last couple tributes to Stan that I wanted to talk about? One of my favorite things he did was like a sci-fi reality show where he let people create superheroes, and at the end, their superhero was supposed to end up getting their own sci-fi movie. I think what they ended up doing was cramming them into like really bad like monster movies that sci-fi did, but it was a cool reality show. It was really, really funny. Like the second season, they ended up turning everybody into villains. Or like if you were winning, you could be a superhero, but if you started losing, you could come back as a villain, and it was a really cool idea. And Stan was just he offered critiques on each superhero, and he would help them redesign their costumes, which was crazy.
Well, I mean,
One of
he has a lot of like knowledge, obviously.
One of the good things about him is that he'll refuse to put his name on something if he doesn't like it.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, last cameo that I really, I did not get to watch it, but I wanted to mention. He ended up in Teen Titans Go.
I noted. I saw that as well and was going to mention it, but I figured you guys didn't watch Teen. I don't. It exists.
What's going on in the chat?
Oh, they're talking to each other.
It's Chris and
yeah.
Kim talking.
Oh, all right. Well, good.
There's going to be I think it's A&E, and it might be coincidental, but this Sunday they unearthed an interview with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
keep an eye out,
it
guys.
Dives into, I don't know if we want to talk about it, but it dives into the feud between Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Ooh.
Because, and Kirby's probably right, or he is right, but Stan Lee didn't give, and I think it's more Marvel than Stan Lee. Stan Lee just kind of like was the spokesperson for Marvel. They didn't give him enough credit for the development of like all the characters that,
right?
Because Jack Kirby was like hugely involved with that. Like,
yeah,
probably I would say maybe even more so than Stan Lee for a lot of the characters.
So like the thing that Stan was talking about during that writing interview too was like a lot of the artists had a lot to do with it as well. Like it wasn't just him.
Yeah.
Like, and he didn't mention Jack in that interview, but you know. So that's
Jack
interesting.
Did most of it, like up until Spider-Man, like Fantastic Four, Hulk, he did a lot of it. And what's really tricky about it, and it's debatable, like how much input both of them had. Like how much is Stan Lee, how much is Jack Kirby? I mean, nobody knows because they didn't really keep records back then.
Right,
fledgling company almost at the beginning of it.
Oh wow.
But yeah, no one knows for sure. And Stan Lee, like, is just like since like I would say the 90s, 80s, and 90s has been like really pushing for everybody else. Like, oh, don't team effort type stuff, which is more than you can say for people. I could talk about Stan Lee this all day, but more than you can say for Bob Kane though, because anything like 20 years ago and before, Batman created by Bob Kane.
Oh yeah, well
but
there was
Finger,
a big thing.
Finger was like hugely. He designed everything. He came up with almost everything for Batman.
Yeah, they actually, I think they just had like a thing with that a little bit ago with Batman. So guys, I think we're gonna be moving on to the nerdy news real quick. One more
tiny.
Well, real quick though, guys, if you guys want to drop any of your thoughts, what are your favorite cameos of Stan Lee? What are some of your favorite things that he created? Maybe something obscure if you can think of it. Just drop it in the chat here, or put it in the YouTube comments if you're watching this on YouTube. So okay, one more thing, and then we're gonna address this big comment over here.
But the reason why it's not like you can't totally believe Kirby is because his stance changes. So like I was researching a lot of Stan Lee last night. Naturally. But Kirby was like, I did everything. I wrote everything. Stan Lee was just like an office person who would like, even things that he wrote, somebody else wrote, and he would just put his name on it. Okay. But he would say that, but then in like the interview that's going to be aired, which was before then, he was like, well, I wrote some stuff too, because there was some debate as to what was even written. And somebody brought up like the Galactus speech, and Stan's like, I'll say this. Every word in those stories were mine. And then Kirby's like, well, actually, I had these, like, I wrote some dialogue, like, at the side of the drawings, because that's how he would write. Like, that's his process. He would write the dialogue, and then Stan. But then Stan was like, yeah, but they weren't published. They weren't in the stories. So it seems like Stan really did, like, write all of it.
Let's see if we
like
can read
his
this.
development.
Do you want me to read it?
Kirby's
I can.
Up for debate.
Okay, they're just a bunch of nerdy people talking about nerdy stuff.
I'm okay with that description.
Oh, he's dropping a... Was that Kim Pop? Yeah, that was Kim. Hey, thank you so much for the follow, Kim. Thank you. Okay.
But yeah, I could talk about Stan Lee all day.
You know, I need to make sure, because I didn't see if that... Follow alert, and then... Twitter's down below. Okay, yeah, so the follow alert will pop up over the Twitter. That's good. Okay, so yeah, so again, guys, drop some of your favorite Stan Lee stuff so we can talk about it.